Welcome back again, emphasis added, to another Dave's Diary entry. Now this follows on within 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the previous video, and I may have come up with a solution to the problem that I talked about in the previous one, and that was to make wooden plugs such that I can, these things, so that I can drill a 20mm bench dog hole, plug it, and have a 8mm hole drilled dead center of it, so that I can align, using the registration pins, my bars. Now that's necessary for the method that I'm going to be required to follow to drill all of my holes. And I had a little bit of problem getting the dowel and hole accurate. I said it's not engineered, it's wood after all. And in fact, when I measured up the diameter of the dowel, it wasn't 100% accurate all the way around. It varied by about 0.1 to 0.15, maybe up to 0.2 of a mil. Not a lot in the general woodworking scheme, but we're working with that interface between engineering and wood. So that requires a certain... we have to increase our fidelity of our tolerances. We just have to get a bit fussier. And because the dowel wasn't 100%, and there was a questionable issue around being able to drill accurately for for various reasons, I thought, well, maybe I'm being overly fussy and I'll just have to live with it. However, when I went to find a 8mm bolt to go into one of these bench dogs, because I had contemplated cutting the shoulders off of the bench dog, and then I could use the bench dog itself as the plug. It is engineered. It has more chance of being accurate compared to these bits of dowel. And I went and got a bolt, and I thought, went to get a bolt, and I thought, what's in these containers? Well, I've got 3 containers of, can I show you them? 20mm with an 8mm hole, 20mm rod, with an 8mm thread in it. Oh, won't have to cut these. Then I thought, can I find an 8mm bolt that is actually 8mm in this dimension in the shank itself? Because, boy, do they vary. They may well have an 8mm. I'm just going to thread it on. You might hear me making the sound because I've got it hard up against the camera. I can get the bolt to go in with the thread very nicely, thank you, but the shanks vary a huge amount. Well, I've found 2 bolts that are 7.89, 7.9, almost 7.9 millimeters in diameter. I need to pick up at least another 0.05 of a millimeter. So really fine. Otherwise 5/100ths of a millimeter or so, a bit more. Could I even pick up 1/10 of a millimeter, which would make them around about as accurate as these, which are 7.99 to 8mm. And that is why when we do that, they fit very nicely, thank you very much. They are almost a little bit better than the actual registration pins that I've got. So that was a deliberate choice. Well, I've got 3 types of this. One is like it's been made out of raw steel. One looks like it is chromed, and this one is supposedly stainless, all of which are supposed to be 20 by 35 up and down with an 8mm hole in it. But that being said, and in real life, different. But this one, the stainless steel one, did you see? I'm going to repeat that. Plunging the stainless steel into the hole there. You can tell when you're doing it. Once it's aligned, that is absolutely spot on. Zero wiggle. Remembering we're dealing with metal to wood. Different if it was metal to metal, but zero wiggle, and it actually goes in buttery smooth. The other two, bit of slop. And it just happens, just out of sheer luck, it wasn't out of good management, I've got to say, I'd love to, that there's the plug. I don't have to worry about those. I'll keep them just now, because I'm going to have a wee bit of a trial and see whether when I do all this that it's of any demonstrable benefit. Anyway, this is a big step forward and or a relief. Now I'm just zeroing out the digital calipers. That is 19.9596. So that is that 5/100ths of a mil that I pick up when I'm measuring the bench dogs. That is the tolerance that the bench dogs have got built in. Remembering I actually mic'd this up and it was just a little bit under 20 millimeters. So that there, even though it measures up almost the same, is not as nice as that. So that in itself is a wee bit of a puzzle, but it could be to do with the finish, I don't know. But that in theory was identical to that, within 1/100th of a millimeter, micron. So yeah, there's that. That's brilliant. However, and I'll get to the point of this video soon, seven point 7.89, depending on where you measure it. It varies a little bit because I'm wiggling the caliper. So I need this. Let me just unwind this single-handedly. You become almost ambidextrous, don't you, when you're using a camera? That needs to be able to slide into there and register, well, point camera in the right direction. Now that is just that tiniest little bit too small, by about 1/10 of a millimeter. And as I was saying, in the scheme of things, that would normally not be an issue, but we are dealing with engineering, not wood. So 0.1 of a millimeter is huge. So what have I done here? I've spray painted the bolt, one of these, with one or two layers of spray primer. Set it in the pointing camera. Set the bolt in the chuck, spun it up, sprayed it, and I'm going to let that harden, and then I'm going to mic it up again, spray it, mic it up again, and see whether I can build up, which I will be able to, a reasonably durable finish on the bolt. I should have really wiped it down with a wee bit of acetone or isopropyl or something, but I didn't. I gave it a wee bit of a sand just to see whether I can increase the girth of the bolt, of the shank, I'm going to say. So if we can do that, we can then have these bolts screw into these dowls. The dowels go into the hole. I've got a greater chance of having my much desired and required registration gizmos. I can't pick a name for that. But that then allows those to drop over, or vice versa, these into the holes. I like it. I've written down that it's stainless steel. I'd have to find the order for it, because I'm thinking I wouldn't mind getting some more of those. They fit so nicely. Wouldn't want to get the other type because they don't fit nicely. But, yeah, quite impressed with that. So, yay. We'll see. We'll let that harden up over the next few hours. It allows me to go have 1 or 2 cups of tea. Oh, coffee? I don't drink coffee. Anyway, have a drink, come back out, mic it up, and see the difference between that bolt and this bolt. We'll work out how many microns I'm picking up and how many coats of paint I have to put on it, because it would be jolly nice, I've got to say, to have an engineering, at least in the ballpark, an engineering type of interface for my plugs before I start cutting everything. And that is something that making these videos, speaking out loud the thoughts and, mulling them over, pays benefit. I've said it time and time again. It has proved itself true. Not always, but normally it does. The other thing is, it allows me time to make the videos, time to give me chances of having a bit of a thought, time to find things that have been sitting on the shelf and not used because they weren't going to be used in this scenario. But time allows me that bit of the grace of time, allows me coming up with solutions. Instead of like most people that actually do wind up producing lots of things, and all the famous people say the same thing: do it, fix it while you're going, like make the errors. Here, I've proved my perspective: do it right, hopefully. Or maybe it's a combination of what I'm doing. Just do the darn thing and fix the problem. But here is one of those times that it's worked in my favour. Time, make the videos, come up with a solution. It was just sheer luck, by the way. But I've also said, when luck comes your way, grab it and don't let it go. A lot of people will look at the luck and say, oh no, that won't work. But take it, try it, and yeah. If I had the other hand free, I'd put 2 thumbs up. So very, very happy with this development. There you go. That's it. All right, I'm going back inside to have a cup of tea. Radio. See you in the next one now. Bye.